Welcome to Lemonade Learning, a refreshing look at learning today. We serve up high-impact practical strategies alongside honest and energizing stories to help educators.
Make the most of your moments, lead and learn with purpose, and craft lifetime lemonade from the sweets and sours of education. Join us for a glass.
Hey everybody, it's Bree.
And Lainey, welcome. Thanks for listening. We've got an amazing guest, and Bree, I'll let you introduce him.
Well, I really don't know that he needs a whole lot of introduction because everybody pretty much in the whole wide world knows this guy. And if you don't know him by his real official name of Dr. Joe Sanfelippo, you know him as Cricket or Go Crickets. And, he's just a good friend of mine, but also an amazing educator. He has a heart of gold and that is completely dedicated to kids. And I'm truly in awe of all that he pours into his community, into his teachers, and most importantly, into those students. We could go through all of his accolades, but he might get embarrassed, and that would be, a little bit of those things in there. But let's just say people appreciate and respect Joe Sanfelippo, and I am thrilled that he's going to spend a little bit of time with us here on Lemonade Learning. So without further ado, welcome, Joe.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I guess that's the time then, right? We don't have any more time for anything else like after that intro, Bree? My goodness. Clearly you got the check in the mail. That's awesome.
That's funny. Murray made a joke about check in the mail too. We just love you both and have lots of really nice things to say about you. So
about who? Who was the other one?
Oh yeah, his name's Tom Murray. Have you heard of him?
He used to be an educator. So which is cool. I mean, I used to work in schools and everything like that. That was fun. I mean, he was like an administrator for a cup of coffee, which is great. I mean, because it ends up, you talk about, you had him on the show first, which is great because JV games are usually before the varsity games, and that works out for everybody here. So I'm really excited to be part of the conversation.
Wow, we're just right in it, like just throwing shade. It's just, we're all in. This is great. I love it. I'm so happy you're here. I mean,
good. Me too.
Really can't wait for Tom to hear this episode too.
He's not going to listen. What, you think he's actually going to listen? He's not going to listen.
Oh, he listens to every episode.
No. Do you realize how long that it takes him to organize his desk and move things from one side of the table to the other every day? I mean, seriously, that's the job. Let's be very clear about that. Maybe like a couple tweets on the way too. Let's go. So we're good. That's good. I'm sure he's having a great time.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is awesome.
Okay, enough about Tom. We don't want to spend time there.
Now that everybody's left, that's fun.
Let's see what is happening in your neck of the woods, right? Like what's going on with your sweet and your sour in the world of Sanfelippo?
I'll tell you. Well, it's been a relatively traditional year. Everything's gone pretty much according to plan since we started. I don't know if things are different where you are. But it's not like we're in the middle of a pandemic, Bree. Seriously, you're like, how are things going? Why, are you kidding me right now? Like, we're trying to stay afloat, man. Like, this is like, we're just trying to stay in school. We are in Northwest Wisconsin, hour and a half east of Minneapolis, St. Paul, on the good side, on Wisconsin side. This is our village of 1,300 people. Fall Creek, Wisconsin is beautiful, home of the Fall Creek Crickets. And we have just a wonderful community that's willing to partner with us in a time of uncertainty. And this was honestly, it was shown like in full force when we were in this spot. So when it comes down to my suite, honestly, I think it's got to be the community that we live in and the acceptance of the parents and the staff and the teachers and the students and everything that goes along with what we're trying to get done here, because we didn't know what this was supposed to look like or could look like. And for the last 6 months, we have built this group to a place where we're not always going to agree on where we're at, right? But at the same time, we have a group of people who are willing to adjust, and not just staff and not just students, but the community. And I think that's been really an incredible set of circumstances for us. And I couldn't be happier to be in a place that values kids and values education as much as this village of 1,300. I mean, this is the hub of the community. We took a lot away from this community when we don't let people in the building to practice or to connect. This is the building in town. This is it. Okay. So when we take that away, there's a sense that people could feel disconnected. At the same time, when they respond to us with, what do you need? You're in a really good position. So I couldn't be happier with what that group is going. So that's definitely the suite that I have in terms of the work that's happening here.
Yeah, I know you don't like to be negative, but what's the sour? Like, it's not always roses. What's happening that has you kind of scratching your head trying to figure out, what you can do differently in this?
Yeah, I think the thing about the whole sour piece of it, and the things that I struggle with, is that, we can put everything that we want into play, and then things change, on a dime, and then you're kind of stuck doing something different. And I think, I was having a conversation with a group of people that there was some communication from outside of the district. There was some communication that went out, and then there was an adjustment in the communication. Now we have to send out different communication to our families because the first communication was incorrect. And I just said to them, like, man, I don't need help looking like an idiot. Like, I don't need help with that. Like, I can do that on my own. But when we have to change our story over and over again, it's really hitting the credibility of the work that's happening. And that's a real problem for me. So I think that when plans don't go according to, what you had thought, I think it impacts people that are developing this trust with you. And then one thing can knock it all down, and then you got to try to rebuild it again. So I hope that, from a logistical sour perspective, I still think people are trying to teach way too much in a virtual environment. And I think that's really bogging down our group. I think they've done a much better job of adjusting, to be really honest, in terms of how much content they deliver and how they deliver that content. But I think that across the country, we've historically taught way too much content. And when we tried to filter that into what we're doing now, we find ourselves in a position where you're really overextending everybody from the learner at home to the instructor in the building, or the instructor at home, or whatever the case may be. So those are just a couple things that I struggle with.
Well, I totally agree with you that we have. I think there's been studies, like, if we taught every standard, we'd be teaching these kids for, like, I don't remember what it was, but it was ridiculous. It was like 50 years or something like that. We could never do it all in this amount of time. Right. And I think that what we're all trying to, like, kind of get our footing on is, so how do we find the right grain size for the content? Like, what is the right amount to ask of our teachers and our students? And we really have to be super intentional in, like, when we're giving choice, how are we keeping people engaged? And this is all stuff that's, like, takes people years to figure out as online teachers. This isn't stuff that, like, you just turn around in a week. Like, I took an online course, I watched a webinar, and now I can do this. This is stuff that, like, has to be, developed and iterated on over years. And it's just a 0 to 1,000. It's so crazy to be asking teachers to do this. And so much good is coming of this. I'm a silver linings person. I think you are too. But it's hard. It's a lot to ask of people.
And I think one of the things that's important about the how we're rolling this out, and I think Peter DeWitt said it last year, this isn't virtual instruction, this is pandemic teaching.
Yes.
And I think there's a distinct difference between, I couldn't agree with him more. And I think as we move from pandemic teaching to virtual instruction, I think we're closer to virtual instruction now than we were to pandemic teaching in the spring. But I also I think that it's important to note that I was talking to a second grade teacher the other day, and, he had his kids in virtual, in virtual instruction for like a week at that time. And he was at his desk, and I'm kind of sitting there, and I walked by his classroom, and I looked in, and you could tell he's a little bit dejected. And I said, "So what's going on, man?" And he said, I never realized how many things happen within the context of a half-hour lesson when I have kids on site. Like you're redirecting here, or you're tweaking here, or you're doing this here. And now to have to do that individually with people on a screen, the kids aren't getting what they need to out of this situation. And there are things that I don't even know that I do. And I felt awful. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. And I'm not telling you that this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to kids, but let's take what we have right now and just make sure that we make the best of what we can right now moving forward. If kids feel loved, supported, and safe in an environment, whether that's here or whether that's at home, if they feel loved, supported, and safe, they're going to learn. So let's do that first. And then after we do that, let's figure out a way to get the content dripped.
Yeah. I hear you being so solution oriented, and that's kind of something I've been thinking a lot about lately. And it's okay to grieve, it's okay to be frustrated, but to not sit in that too long and to just say, okay, well, like you're saying, these are the constraints, this is what we've been given. It might not be our choice, but this is what we're going to make the best of with. So I appreciate that. Bree, what do you think?
Yeah.
Any type of extreme is going to be extremely bad, right? Like if you are just, oh, everything's fine, there's nothing to do, we're going to be everything all in this one way, right? Like we're going to do everything perfectly and it's just going to be lockstep. That's not going to happen because so many changes are happening rapid fire that are beyond the control of any, at a state level, at a federal level, at a local level, because so many different things are rapidly happening. But at the same time, you also can't wallow around and think that there's absolutely nothing that can be done, because we have to, keep moving forward. And I think that so much of it, I remember you saying this constantly last spring, was that relationship has to be there. And I found myself talking to, on an interview a few months ago, and I had been on the bandwagon of like, hey, what happened in the spring, that was not, we were just being reactive. We weren't, really kind of processing through that, until as I was speaking, I realized, you know what? No, we were doing exactly what we needed to do in the spring. We were focused on relationships. We were making sure these kids were safe. We were making sure these kids knew that they hadn't been abandoned and that they, still had a lot to share and to give and to move forward with it. And I think that in some ways, in our reasoning to overcome that, because so many people felt like we were just kind of given away school in the spring, that we rushed past a lot of the relationship building this year, and really kind of cannonballed into content to try to say, like, we've got to catch up. And I know for like even my own kids, my son is in 6th grade, and we had a very challenging conversation around division, and he felt like he just felt so lost. And he said, all of this stuff was stuff that we were supposed to learn at the end of last year, and they just said that we're supposed to know it, and they're just moving forward. And and I told him, I was like, your teachers are going to help you all along the way, and just take a breath and we're going to be all right. But I think that is a concern, of the countless standards that are out there. How do we really focus in and make sure that the learning is still happening in that classroom?
Yeah, and I think we took the same approach to it too. Like when we got into when the pandemic hit earlier this year, I mean, in March, we told we had to be very logistical about it, because I think, all of our teachers just wanted to get into it. Let's go. And so we just said to them, during the first 3 days, there will be no content given. There will be nothing. There will be no assignments. There will be nothing. You will call every kid on your roster and you will ask them, how are you doing? And what do you need? That's it. How are you doing? What do you need? We'll get all the tech to you. We'll get all the information to you, whatever you need. Like, let's talk about their needs first. And then we did the same thing with the parents. Like, how are you doing? What do you need? And I think that really helped us out, because I think what ended up happening, we did the same thing once we started this year too, when we were in that environment. And I think what ended up happening with educators across the country is I think that this was the time that they were going to shout out. This was the time they were going to look at parents and say, see, I told you. See, our job's pretty hard. Like, our job's really hard, right? Like, our job's really hard, right? Our job's really hard, right? This is really hard, right? And when they and they do that, and the thing that we have to understand about that is the people that they want to say that to are not going to come back and say, oh, you know what? The job's really hard. I can't believe that you do this, right? The person that you want, the parent that you want to say that to, or that you want to have that come back to them, they're going to be like, nah, it's really not that bad. We did it pretty well. It looks pretty good. It was actually pretty good. I think we did it pretty well. I think we're going to keep doing it. I think we're going to keep. Now, they're not telling you that they're stuck in a corner with a bottle of wine and crying at the end of the night, but they still aren't going to come back and tell you that you're great at your job. So when we wait for that and we wallow in that, we don't get a chance to move forward and say, you know what, that's just the way it's going to be. Let's just kind of keep moving forward and create this connection and lean into parents and say, hey, man, like, you didn't ask for this, right? This is not what you asked for. But we're here to help you because this is what we do. And if we do that, now we create partnerships with the new network that those kids have. Because right now, like, and I do with our staff too, when we were out, we had to realize that the networks changed immediately. that like my 5th grade teachers didn't have 2 5th grade teachers next door that they could go to. They had those people on Zoom, but then they also had a 3-year-old kid that needed breakfast. They had a baby that needed changing. They had a college kid that came back to do his work at home, right? They had all of these new colleagues. So what were we doing to help these new colleagues assimilate as well and make sure that the teacher in our space was valued by their new colleagues as well as their old colleagues? So did you call the spouse or the kids or send a note to the kids of these teachers to make sure that they knew that their mom or dad or their spouse was valued? What are we doing to make sure those things happen so the new networks can really kind of buy into what the teacher is doing, even if that teacher is teaching from home?
Yeah. Joe, one of the things that I truly admire about you is your ability to build community and bring people together. You never lose that as like your true north. Like I always see you and everything that you share. And one of the things that, I think we can, as we try to work through this all in real time, we can try to process like, what are the things that are not different from in-person and online learning? And preparing learners to learn, still the same. It looks a little different. Building community, still the same. And one of the things that has always been something that I had to learn when I started in online learning was this idea of teacher presence, or administrator presence. And this presence that used to happen so naturally, just being physically together, is now happening in different ways. And I love that you've been good at this pre-COVID. You've had a lot of presence. You send videos, you're on Twitter tweeting. Like there's no question what's happening in your schools because you're sharing it all the time. Like you're, that like if you don't tell the story, someone will make the story up for you. I forget who said that originally. I've heard a few people say it, but could you share with us some of the things that you are doing? And it could have been pre-COVID that are still working, but like, how are you having that presence? Because I think it's super important when, like you said earlier, adults don't get into campus anymore. All the great things that are happening, we don't get to necessarily see in the same way. So what are some of the things that are working for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we have to understand is that there needs to be some consistency in the delivery of what that looks like. So let's talk about COVID stuff first. I think so. There was a lot of big decisions coming out in terms of how we were going to run school throughout the course of the summer and what that was going to look like. Actually, let's go back first. So when we went right into the pandemic piece, we still wanted to make sure that there was a visibility in terms of what was happening at school. And I think one of the things in terms of visibility was you have to find a way to create moments that build momentum. Because you can create, that whole, I'm a big tell your story guy, all right? But I think it's been played out to the point that it's a problem. Because when we talk about telling the story of schools, it's not just about telling the story of schools. It's about making sure that you leverage the voice of the school in a way that it's going to continue to move forward. Like I can go out into the football field out here and scream at the top of my lungs about how great the 4th grade teachers are doing. And all it's going to happen is I'm going to get a sore throat and nobody's going to know because nobody's there. Right? So if you figure out a way to create these moments that turn into movements, it's really about making sure that those stories get valued moving forward. So at the end of last year, during that pandemic time, we would try to create momentum through consistency. So every morning at 8:00, I would read 3 stories on our Facebook page and I would do the same thing every single morning. I'd get on, I'd say, all right, kids, I'm ready for you, man. I'm ready for you. Parents, I need you to go away. I don't need you. I don't need you right now. Go get your coffee, go get your social media. I don't care what you do, but I got you. I'll see you in 25 minutes. You can go. Giving them the opportunity to just get out and give themselves a break for a second. And I'd read these 3 stories that our kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade teachers gave me. And then at the end, I'd always do like a awful magic trick, like just a really bad look up bad magic tricks on Google. And there it is, right? And I do these magic tricks. And maybe I have one. Hold on. Oh, I do. All right, good. So I would do like this. For those people who aren't really watching, you're not going to see this, but I don't care. So I would do these magic tricks. I'm like, oh, I got this cup of coffee right here, kids. I got this cup of coffee. What do you need me to make this cup float? Is that what you need, kids? Oh my goodness, he's magic. Oh my goodness, he's magic. He's totally magic, right? And then after I did that, I would get off of the video, and then I would get FaceTime calls and Google Hangouts from kids, and they'd be leaning into me. They're like, you're not magic. You're not magic. I saw that cup. I saw your thumb in the cup. You're not magic. You're not magic. You're not magic. And I'd go back and forth with these kids. And I'm like, I am magic. And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I guess you're just going to have to come back tomorrow and find out. And they did. They came back the next day and they found out. And we read stories. We did magic tricks. But it gave everybody a chance. And I would always say, don't forget to brush your teeth. Let's get your teeth brushed. Let's get ready to go. Okay. And then we'd go forward. This year, I got a couple of weeks ago, I got a text message from a parent whose 4-year-old was reading a story to her class online because they were in that virtual mode. And she started out the story by saying, okay, kids, get your teeth brushed. Okay, parents, go get your coffee. Let's go. And then she read the story, man. That was 4 months ago. So those are some things that if we can create consistency and moments, it turns into a movement, going forward. When it comes to now in this moment, and I'm sorry, getting up to making the decision, over the course of the summer, we were really consistent in how we developed messaging. Every Thursday night at 7:00, we'd do a Facebook Live and just answer questions. So people were getting the same answers from me every Thursday at 7:00 all the time. So when we rolled out our plan on August 3rd, everybody already knew what was going on. And everybody, when they asked me the same questions every week, half of the people were like, oh my gosh, you asked this question already. And the other half were like, I'm just here to make sure that he's going to say the same thing. I want him to say the same thing because if it changes, then I'm going to have a problem. Right. So now we've got this momentum. So when we rolled that out on August 3rd, we didn't really have a tremendous amount of backlash in terms of what the plan was because everybody knew the plan before it even got there. And so I think, when you can create those moments in terms of the story is important. And Bree, you know that better than anybody. The story is important, but at the same time, how are we making sure that the story gets into the place of the people that can move the story forward, right? Because it's not just about telling the story. It's about finding the leverage points in the story and the people to get it out. Like if I do a podcast with a kid, me getting a podcast with a kid out is not just about me doing the podcast and putting it out on social media. It's about me doing the podcast with the kid and then calling the parent of the kid and saying, hey, in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to put this on our social media channel and you're going to love it. Yeah. You're going to love it. Right? I can't wait for you to hear it. I can't wait for you to hear it. It's the best thing that I've done. It's the best thing. It's fantastic, right? Then you put that out. Well, what's mom doing for the next 15 minutes? Mom's sitting there going like refresh. Because she wanted to be the first person to share that story because her sister's kids get all the attention on Facebook. This is an opportunity for us to build momentum moving forward. So it's not just about the story. It's how do we make sure that story has movement?
Yeah. I love this. And I think that so much of it is because it's not, when we think about story, a lot of times people think it had to have been some big grandiose thing that happened. And now I'm celebrating it and telling everyone about it. But the thing is that what you're doing is you're living those stories, right? Like you're saying, from a crisis communication point, the most important story that can be told right now is your core identity story. And every single one of those stories that you just shared is helping people understand who Fall Creek is in their core identity, right? Like we're saying the circumstances have changed, but we're still here for you. We're still having class in your living room. We're still, supporting you every single way. We're having, these celebrations of birthdays and academic recognition and all these different pieces, because if we don't live that story, we just have a mission statement or a vision statement, and it's not anything. Like it's just a bunch of words. So we have to have that out there. And I think that is so crucial. And so many people are, we hesitate when it comes to sharing our story because we think something bad's going to come from it or somebody's going to think something negative about me, but it's not. It's like, you're the vehicle to help other people to amplify that. One of the things that always sits out to me is how visible you are whenever you share these pieces. I mean, everyone knows where Fall Creek, Wisconsin is. Like that's, even if you've never heard of it before, like, where it is, if you follow you. I remember last year when things were really up in the air, and my brother, who is a high school teacher, came to me one day and he was like, what are you hearing? What are you hearing? We were kind of talking through, what all was going on. And I asked him, what's happening at your district? What are you hearing? Principal, superintendent, all this stuff. And he said, well, we have a weekly meeting, a weekly Zoom. But, we really don't get a whole lot of like information coming out. But, he always tells us that he's going to let us know when something happens. And I was like, that's incredible. And he just kind of sat there and I said, wouldn't you rather have somebody who looks at you every week and said,
Absolutely.
hey, I don't know, but I'll let you know,
Right.
a whole lot better than somebody who just disappears. And,
Yeah.
and I think because like, especially in this virtual circumstance, like my kids, when the shutdown happened, Mason, my oldest, had, he had a number of teachers that he didn't see their faces for a while because they weren't comfortable putting their face on video. And I remember thinking and sharing with other people, like you would not walk into your classroom with a bag on your head, right? Like you want to get your face.
I might, but other people might. I get you.
Yeah.
I got a face for radio. That's why I'm loving this podcast thing.
But I think it's remembering that like we have the technology to give the people what they need, and what they need is that human connection. And if we have that human connection, then we have learning, and you do that so well.
Our people do it real well. I'm just really loud about it, and I think that's important, connection there, honestly. So
you have to be loud about it, I think, because first of all, there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot going on. I really love your point about consistency. Wow, is that crucial? Like that's comforting, right? Like I know even if there's not anything new, I'm gonna get that Thursday night, right? Like I think that's super important.
And we do it with our posts here too. I mean, I think when you think about it's great to have things in the moment, but if it's all over the place, I mean, we try to be really consistent in terms of when we post stuff and how we post stuff and what it looks like and everything that goes along with it. So I think that's an important component of what we do too.
How much has that kind of infiltrated, if you will, into the classroom? Like, I mean, moving into the circumstance where you are, especially with your little guys, right? Like now all of a sudden they're in either a remote or some type of hybrid situation. Even if it's not official, I would assume that, you guys are prepared for any given time because, well, let's face it, it's Fall Creek and you might, be snowed out at any given time. So what have you seen? You have such an incredible crew, and I still keep in touch with a lot of them. So what are some things that you have leveraged from the experiences that you've had, kind of hosting the community and talking with them and being there? It's almost kind of like your own virtual class in a way. How has that kind of come into the classrooms of the teachers and the students as well?
Well, I think the kind of goes back to what you were talking about before in terms of, making sure that people know and understand what you do. We honestly live by the idea that, in the absence of knowledge, people tend to make up their own. So what are we really doing to leverage all of the opportunities that we have in these moments? We say that, there's 960 30-second opportunities to tell stories around here in an 8-hour day. And you don't have to have this big, celebration. Sometimes it's a kid that walks in the hallway and does something really incredible. We start our meetings, our school board meetings with kids all the time. And they get a minute to just talk about what's going on. We had a kid 2 years ago now. He was a third grade student at the time, and his name was Caden, and he won some ribbons at visually impaired Olympics. So he goes to the visually impaired Olympics and he wins these ribbons. He says to me, he's like, touch Sanfelippo. I went to the visually impaired Olympics in Denver and I just won these ribbons. Can I come talk to the school board about them? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course, right? So the kid comes, does the whole thing. And the school board's kind of sitting back and they're just clapping and they're loving on him the whole time. And then this 9-year-old kid, right before he takes off, 9-year-old kid says to everybody, he goes, I want to say one more thing. I want to say thank you to Mrs. Moore. She's my paraprofessional here. She helps me get around school. She just makes it a lot easier for me. So what do you think happens to Mrs. Moore in the spring when we start talking about the budget, right? She's not a number anymore. She's a story, and the story wins. So how do we make sure that story, those stories get told over and over and over again? And for us, really kind of comes down to 3 things. How do we, in the community, in here and in the community, how do we do these 3 things better than anybody else? How do we recognize the greatness of our colleagues, acknowledge the greatness of our colleagues, and then extend the conversation to somebody who wasn't here so they know that the things happening here are great? So what are we doing to put ourselves in the right mindset to walk down hallways or be online and recognize the greatness of what's happening in that space, the great things that are happening all the time? Then not only recognize it, but acknowledge to the person that they're doing great things, because that's important. So now 2 people know that great things are happening. That's awesome. But when you walk across the hall or you walk down to the other side of the building and you say to the person on the other side of the building, you got to go check out the middle school. You got to go see what's happening there. they're going to eventually go down and check out the middle school because at some point somebody did it for them and it felt good. And that's what we want. If we can build a community where people recognize the greatness of their colleagues, acknowledge that to their colleagues, and then extend that to somebody who wasn't there, now we've got this cyclical nature of all the great things that are happening, and they can be told in a way that can leverage the story outside of this spot.
Just needing a moment here. The story, I'm not going to cry. I'm just, we'll call it.
We're going to need to reach out to Kleenex and see if we can get a sponsorship. I'm just saying.
Right here. I mean, I keep it close all the time. But that's that's the thing. There's so many great things happening. If we don't talk about it beyond, like you said, the one person, the two person, if it doesn't get beyond that, no one knows about it.
Right. And we set this, like, we had to find ways to set ourselves up to have these conversations and be willing to, we talked about this. We talk about it over and over again. Like, everybody's A to B is different, but their A to B is a story. And if there's a way that nobody's going to talk, if they don't feel like their story has value, then they're not going to talk about it. So how can we create these moments that turn into movements along the way? And the more that we can do that, the better chance that we have for not only the story to get told and the movement to happen, but we create value for the person who's invested in that story.
I think so much of it too is also remembering that stories are how our brain works. And so for every one of those opportunities, right, where we're giving, recognizing the colleagues and recognizing the work that's going into this, we also have to think about what that opportunity meant to that kid, right? And so now that experience is a story that now makes that content stick in their brain, right? And I think that that's one of those things that we're all after. We're always trying to, whenever we're talking to people, whenever we're teaching in metaphors and analogies constantly. Like, it doesn't matter what your content is, you're trying to take that information and explain it to somebody in a way that they'll understand it. So whether you're, comparing it to cars or to grocery items or whatever that circumstance is, you're presenting it in a story that you're hoping they're going to hold on to, right? And I think that's one of those things that's also incredible, is that your teachers are creating these stories where their students are the protagonists in them.
Yeah, they're the characters. They're the characters, and I think that's exactly what I was going to say. When the individual is the character in the story, now there's a much better opportunity for that story to be told. Very well said. Yeah.
So I'm curious. So, Joe, the history of this podcast is that it started literally in March. I mean, we started talking in March. We released our first episode in April, and it all came from feeling like, well, at least for me, Bree, I won't speak for you, but I felt like I had permission to fail forward because I had a long history in online learning, a long history with face-to-face. So I wanted to talk about, and also as a parent, I wanted to talk about how I was in real time trying to go through all this. I never would have done it without Bree. And it just kind of gave me the permission. And I wonder, do you think that others are feeling like they have more permission or less permission to fail forward now? Because I know there's a lot of anxiety, like, oh, if I post this picture about this kid, that's even though they're socially distanced, maybe it looks like it's not safe. You know what I mean? Like, do we feel like we can do these things that maybe we didn't feel like we had permission? Or do you feel like people are even a little more concerned generally? I know what you're doing is sharing everything, and thank you for that, but I'm just kind of curious if you think
well, but even us, honestly, like, I feel like we're a little bit, we pull back a little bit because we want to make sure that the message that's out there is in line with the organizations that are setting forth the guidelines and responsibilities for us to be able to have school the way that we have to have school. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that when you put stuff out socially that's not in line with what those recommendations, guidelines are, there's definitely going to be some naysayers out there that just want to jump at you and say, you're doing the wrong thing or whatever. So I've never been in a situation, I've been a superintendent for 10 years, and I've never been in a situation where every decision has very loud, polar opposite views. Like, I could have literally 3 people in my office right now, and I could tell one of them to sit at that table and just sit down and we're going to get going. One person would scream at me because that's not the best seat in the house. That's not the best seat. That's not where you should put them. Why would you put them there? And the other person who's in the room would say, oh my gosh, that's the best seat I've ever seen in my life. Look at that seat. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Like every decision is at 11. And that's where people sit. So I think we got to be really careful. I don't know if we have permission to fail forward in terms of what gets shared. I think we have permission to fail forward in terms of the instructional model that we use because we've never done it before. So we've told our staff, and it's not even telling them, it's proving it to them. So when we were talking about building 15-minute mini lessons, when we did our PD this year, the administrators created 15-minute mini lessons to kind of just model what we were doing. And the expectation was, this is just what we're thinking. It doesn't need to be like highly edited and get the right sound system. It just needs to be you talking to people. Like, that's what we need to do. So I don't know if people I feel like in terms of instructionally, they can fail forward and feel okay. I don't believe that that's the case when it comes to sharing things outside of school.
Yeah. And I totally get, especially anything that we want to keep our everyone safe. I just wish that while we're all kind of in this vulnerable state, we felt a little bit better about asking for help and sharing what's working and also sharing what's not working. But I totally get why some people also are not quite ready to do that.
Yeah, more people I think are in that boat because I think that, and I think we've kind of hunkered down in that, like last year, I think for the first month of school, everybody was like, oh my gosh, look what teachers are doing. Can you believe that they've just turned so well? This is unbelievable. This is fantastic. And now our people are working harder in September than they did in March in terms of making connections to content. And like, well, you're really not doing enough right now. Like, what's going on? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay. And thankfully, we live in a community that does not have that response at all. Like, they are all in. I got nothing but great things to say about the people that are here. So of course you have some people that are frustrated with the process, but they also understand, like, this is kind of where we're at. And the amount of negative feedback is relatively small, all things considered.
During the early months of the pandemic, it was kind of this time to, like, a lot of people were throwing in on their passion projects, right? And so they're like learning languages and they're, painting masterpieces and doing all this kind of stuff. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to like step up our game on like making it absolutely perfect because everybody has this time. Like, we didn't have I don't have time to do this. Right. And so, I certainly can, I'll tell on myself and say that my anxiety around, production of content and things like that was certainly high. And then I got a hold of some data over the summer that really, kind of took me by surprise a little bit, but totally makes sense, which was that the American public overall has actually shifted in what our preference for content is now. And it is that we've shifted away from highly polished, and we really want to see that vulnerability of what's happening. And, they kind of played that into, as the spring went on and into summer, that, your live TV shows, all those different places were broadcasting from their phone and having like their 8-year-old, try to hold up a microphone. And you got to see that, right? Like what Amy Schumer had like a whole season of like from her kitchen in poorly lit, all this stuff. And so I think it was that realization, right, that we are still coming to like that core identity. This is what we're coming with. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like, you're going to sneeze in front of your class. It's okay if you sneeze on a video, right? And so I think that gave me a little bit more permission for myself. But I think that, as far as like highly polished content, but I completely agree that, as a whole, our general public, the numbers have been out there for, probably 10 years now that talk about how people have a certain, identity or perception, I guess, of what public education is. And overall, like if you listen to them, they're like, oh, it's not great. It's not great. It's not great. But then if you ask them about the public education in their hometown, they're like, it's amazing. And so, it's like, to me, that's what we're trying to do is we're bringing hometown down to our people, right? Like we're saying, hey, this is because you appreciate what you know. And so I think it's that permission to be real, like go to the grocery store and say hi to your neighbors. If you can't do that, say hi to them on a Facebook Live, right? Like I think it's kind of bringing that part out.
I think the interesting thing for me about that data in terms of everybody likes their own school is, which is fantastic, but 80% of the voting public don't have kids in school.
Right.
So now you've got 80% of the voting public that are making a determination about what happened to them when they were in school. And the farther that you get away from the day-to-day school, the farther that you don't remember all the great things that happened. You remember the teacher that was mean to you. You remember that you got put up against the wall at recess, that you didn't get the second chicken sandwich at lunch, that the coach didn't play you. Like that's the stuff that you remember and talk about. And then those become the stories that people gravitate towards instead of the 20% who are saying, man, our teachers are killing it. So when the 20% gets as louder than the 80%, you've got a better opportunity to move us forward.
Yeah. Oh, I think we could talk to Joe all day long. I mean, I absolutely could, but I know that he is a busy, busy man. I know you are, Joe, and I am so appreciative for you sharing stories with us today and just giving us some great ideas of how we can pay that forward and keep the stories of school present in everyone's mind and just celebrating kids. I mean, that's what it's all about. So
it's been super fun. Do you realize that the recording button went off like a half hour ago, right? You're okay with that?
I
Just kidding.
pay attention to it. I know you're trying to get me.
Yeah, ladies, I had a great time. That was super fun. And if there's anything that we can do here, don't ever hesitate to ask. We got great people, and our group is always willing to talk about the stuff that they're doing. And it's just every time one of our board goals. We have 3 board goals. Okay, the first one is the answer is always we. The second one is that we always keep our dirty laundry in house, and our last one is we never give up the opportunity to say something great about our school. And if you call any of our board members, that they will tell you what those 3 are. And our group has been really. It's been really fun to watch them on a national level do some really incredible things, considering the fact that we're an 825 student school district in Northwest Wisconsin. So keep asking and we'll keep talking about it.
Well, I will say if there were ever a school district that truly epitomized the idea behind Lemonade Learning, it is definitely Fall Creek. I mean, the whole part, when Lainey and I first started talking about this, I was like, this isn't perfect, right? But we're taking lemons and we're making it, right? Like that's what learning is. It doesn't matter if it's in the middle of a pandemic or if it's, 25 years from now or 25 years ago, like nothing's ever going to be exactly what we want, but we take it and we make what we want it to be out of that. And Fall Creek does that in so many ways. So thank you for sharing them with us, and we'll definitely be tapping some shoulders and bringing them over here with us as well.
All right,
Joe, what's the best place for people to find you? Because I follow you on Twitter, and that's always where I get my inspiration from you. Is there other places? We'll put your Twitter handle down here, and
that's probably the best spot. That's probably the best spot. We've been and follow Go Crickets hashtag. We got a lot of great stuff happening in the space, so you're gonna want to be there.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate you. Thank you all for listening, and we can't wait for another episode.
All right, bye. Thanks for having me. Go Crickets.
If you enjoyed this batch of Lemonade Learning, please check out our website, lemonadelearning.us, for more resources. Be sure to subscribe today so you don't miss out on future lessons, laughter, or lemonade.
And if you're feeling really generous, please go to Apple Podcasts to submit a review so other educators know the value. One last thing. Learning and Lemonade are best together. So please connect with us on social media using the hashtag Lemonade Learning to share your story. Plus, we're always looking to give away stickers and swag.